Homecoming, Samorin, June 1945. The large military trucks are driven by handsome young Americans with shiny black faces and quick flashes of brilliant white teeth. They must be good-hearted men, these young black Americans. Their smiles give them away. In the middle of June, the repatriation began. Hundreds of thousands are waiting to leave the refugee camps and return home. The first transports went to various parts in Germany and Austria, and now our turn has come. We are being repatriated to Czechoslovakia. Most of our friends are staying behind. Their turn is next, transports to Hungary and Romania. We climb onto the huge military transport, Mommy, Bubby, and I, and are seated on metal planks flanking the three sides of the open vehicle. Our new belongings, a gray duffel bag and two smaller bundles made of sheets and 3 green army blankets, are tossed on top of a luggage heap in the middle of the truck. Then the roar of the engine, a sudden rush of opened air, frenzied waving, and we are off in 12 enormous, noisy vehicles. Very soon the transit camp recedes into a bluish haze, and the hills come racing to meet the curving road. We race ahead, suspended between sky and Bavarian Alps. Wide open sky. Unbridled charge of savage wind, freedom, exhilarating, intoxicating, threatening. I hold onto Bubby's arm with a firm grip. With eyes closed, chin raised, Bubby is thirstily drinking it all in through wide open nostrils. Fast, isn't it? My voice vibrates against the oncoming air current. Wonderful, just wonderful. These black Americans, they call them Negroes, they are the best drivers in the world. How do you know that? I remember reading it somewhere. My brother Bubby knows everything. The road spirals upward on a narrow path. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to be afraid. The trucks race nonstop all night. Stars hang against a brilliant sky. The chill night air paralyzes my body, even under the blankets. My jaw is stiff from 1,000 shivers. Aren't they ever going to stop? Don't they have to rest? They have been driving since yesterday morning. There are 2 of them. They're taking turns. By noon the next day, the army vehicles come to a screeching halt in the center square of a Gothic town. Thank God. Finally we can rest our weary limbs for a while here, I hope. The drivers come to the back of the truck and greet us with wan smiles. One of them says something in English, and then they begin to unload the luggage. With waves of their arms, they indicate for us to get off of the truck, and we oblige, somewhat uncomprehending. As soon as the trucks are empty, the engines are revved up and the vehicles take off in a cloud of exhaust fumes. What's this? We stand, a lost bunch of worn travelers, in the midst of nowhere. Dusty cargo of the mighty American machines, we are dumped unceremoniously in the center of a strange town. Where are we? What will become of us? We find out that we are in Pilsen. Pilsen is Czechoslovakia. We are home. Our little crowd begins to scatter in every direction. Mommy, Bubby, and I have to get to Bratislava in Slovakia, much farther east, and the only transportation is by freight train. We head for the train station. It is getting warm. Our duffel bag is much too heavy. Bubby and I are dragging it on rough roads, sweat soaking the new American Army surplus clothes we received in the transit camp. With our free hands, we are helping Mommy carry the smaller bundles. At the station, there is a freight train ready to leave for Bratislava tomorrow morning. The station master allows us to move into one of the cars and spend the night. Mommy finds a wicker broom and sweeps the freight car clean. We spread our blankets, open our ration kit, and dine in the spacious luxury of an empty, cool wagon. What a stroke of good fortune. By nightfall, several other passengers find their way into our wagon. They are all refugees of the war, heading home. Soon the wagon is full of people, and there is a pervading mood of expectation for tomorrow. It is noon when wheels stir into motion and the wagon begins to roll. We are moving at last. Mountains mellow into rolling hills and then flatten into wide open stretches of green meadow. We are heading east toward the lowlands of the Danube Valley, and the foliage is becoming familiar. The train moves in sparse installments, and it is only on the fourth day that we arrive at the outskirts of Bratislava. The train stops for several minutes, just long enough for the three of us to scamper off, dragging our bulky belongings. Our traveling companions wave frantically from the belly of the wagon as the train picks up speed and vanishes into the blinding sunshine. Mommy, Bubby, and I spend several days in Bratislava until a farmer traveling east consents to give us a ride to our hometown in his cart. It is called Samorin now. My first sight of Samorin is obliterated by a hot summer haze and dust churned up by the horses' hooves. The dull ache in my stomach changes to sharp stabs. The peasant cart turns the corner. There, on the small elevation of the deserted square, stands our house, now faded yellow with large patches of gray. A battered sign hangs above the shuttered storefront, Friedman General Store. The windows are dark, and the gate is ajar. Here, Mommy says, stop right here, please, and thank you kindly. The courtyard is deserted. The rooms are bare. The floors are covered with thick layers of dust and something else. In the middle of every room, there is a heap of human excrement. Where is everything? The furniture, bedding, carpets, curtains, pots and pans? Even the pump from the well is gone. How will we get water? And where is Daddy? Perhaps Daddy is staying with someone else until our return. He didn't want to be alone in this empty house. Soon we'll find out. Bubby limps into town to find out. I run over to our neighbors to borrow a wicker broom. Mrs. Plutzer stops in her tracks. Ellie! Jesus Maria, it's Ellie! You're back! Jesus is kind. You're alive! The Plutzers bring us a pitcher of milk, some eggs, and a bundle of straw to sleep on. We are home. 32 young boys and girls have returned. Our arrival makes the number 35. Daddy has not come yet. Then, one day, 2 weeks after our homecoming, Mitzi Lunger arrives and brings news about Daddy. He saw Daddy along the road home in the company of a man named Weiss from the village of Najimijar. What causes Daddy's delay? When news reaches us that Mr. Weiss has arrived in his village, Bubby decides to get to Najimijar at once. A Samorin cattle dealer on his way to some villages in the Najimijar vicinity offers Bubby a ride on his wagon early next dawn. It is still dark when Bubby rises and takes off toward the home of the cattle dealer. I feel a tinge of regret that Mommy does not let me join my brother on the journey. It is a hazardous trip for a girl. The countryside is full of roaming Russian soldiers. It is about 10 a.m. when Bubby, his face ashen, walks into the kitchen. Bubby, you're back so soon? I did not go. The cattle dealer did not go to Najimijar after all? The cattle dealer went. I did not go. A cold hand stops the beating of my heart. Mommy looks intently into Bubby's eyes. Very, very quietly, she asks, Bubby, what happened? We hung around for a long time before he was ready to start. When I climbed up next to him in the driver's seat, he said, Look, kid, it's a shame you should make this long trip for nothing. The others told you to go to Najimijar because nobody wanted to be the one to tell you. I'm going to tell you the truth about your father. He's not coming home. He died in Bergen-Belsen 2 weeks before liberation. Lunger and Weiss buried him with their own hands. And so I did not go to Najimijar. Mommy freezes. I give a shriek and run into the yard. Bubby follows me. Come inside, Ellie. There's the law. I have to rend a tear in your dress. And then we have to sit Shiva. In the kitchen, Mommy sits on the floor, staring into the vacuum. When news of the death reaches the family after the lapse of Shloshim, the 30-day mourning period, they sit Shiva only for an hour instead of a week, Bubby explains in soft murmur. Daddy died in April, and now it's July. Bubby grips my collar to rend a tear in it, and I begin to howl like a wounded beast. Gently, he pushes me down on the floor, and I sit Shiva for Daddy. There is nothing to keep us here any longer. Now we know that all the others are not coming home either. News reaches us daily of family and friends who were taken to the gas, and others who died in one camp or another, or on the highways of Germany on death marches, and others who died after liberation on their way home. Each piece of news adds to a deepening sense of isolation. We are the only survivors, the three of us, just as Bubby said in Waldlager. There are no Jewish children here, no older people. The children I saw marching toward the smoke in Auschwitz, the little boy with the yellow clown, they were the last ones. When I see a child on the street, I see those children, and little Tommy, Susie, and Frumet in the cattle car heading for Auschwitz, and my insides turn numb with the pain of emptiness. I want to go to Palestine, the Jewish land, and live among people who share my inner void. I want to hear the echo of that void reverberate in the voices of my fellow students, my fellow shoppers, my fellow pedestrians. When I reach for a bar of soap on the grocery shelf and my fingers cringe from the memory of soap made from pure Jewish fat, I want to glimpse the horror in the eyes of the next shopper reaching for a bar of soap. Can the void ever be filled? Perhaps it can be shared, perhaps in the Jewish land. But I have a problem. Bubby received an affidavit from a school in New York, and soon he will be leaving for America. The three of us had vowed never to be separated again. We must follow Bubby to America as soon as we can. What's America like? Are there people in America who can understand? The compulsion to fill the void? The search, the reaching out, the sense of futility, the irrevocable statement that is Auschwitz, the loss of perspective, the total, irreconcilable loss. Can anyone understand the pain of the uprooted? This was my home once, my town, my country. The pasture beyond our house was my childhood playground. The path leading to the Danube was my path. I can still hear Daddy's firm, light footsteps next to me in the grass as we hurry for a quick swim in our river. I can hear Mommy's cheerful chatter, Aunt Serena's soft singing far behind us. I can see Bubby and his friends striding ahead with fishing gear, partially swallowed up by the tall grass. I can see the poplars swaying in the distance and the deep, shady forest looming far beyond. I can smell the mist of the water mingled with the odor of wet moss. I can hear the pealing of church bells and their echoes booming in the surrounding hills. It is all part of the fabric of my inner world, the Danube, the meadow, the Carpathian foothills, and the town. Without it, I'm not whole. Yet it is no longer mine. It is not my home anymore.